you're gonna like whatever you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Lots of. At the time, of the 15 minutes.
It's because of the half of the session was too, where this is like five. It's like a rite of passage almost. Yeah. Especially coming from Bruce, you're almost as far as I'm. Down by the, around. Down around.
Is it running?
Yes.
Stay connected.
Yes.
We have them marked.
Hang on.
There's nothing to hit. It says it's connected.
It says I'm already in.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
It is 6 o'clock. I'll call the County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. First on the agenda is roll call. If everybody can mark themselves present.
Have you present down there, Terry?
18 present. We have a quorum. So on the agenda, we have the invocation by Pastor Joel DeFord of Northern Bible Church, and then the Pledge of Allegiance by Kathy Halper.
Father in heaven, we thank you for establishing government in order to promote order in society. And we thank you for each of these here today who have been willing to participate in this, this task of ordering our society. We pray that you would bless each one. Thank you for their sacrifice. Lord, I pray that as they meet together here tonight, you would give wisdom, give discernment, give understanding. Lord, give creativity. Sometimes problems are difficult. We pray that you would help them to arrive at good answers. Lord, I pray that you would be pleased with all that's done here tonight. I pray that things would progress in an orderly way and that the decisions made would be good decisions. We thank and praise you for these things. In Christ's name we ask.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have to redo. Have to, Wayne, just hang on here.
Technical difficulty. It's a minute.
Starting on.
Thing is,
Yep, it's okay.
We're gonna have to all sign back in just a moment here.
No,
We gotta ask. Hi. Okay, Terry.
It votes for me automatically, so I can just sit here.
Okay,
AI influence.
if there is any public comment, we could start that while she's getting the system rebooted here. Don't have to be in her screens for that. Is there any public comment? Any public comment?
Yeah.
Public comment. Now closed.
letting me in. Welcome to this battle.
All right. Next on the agenda, we got the approval of the minutes from April 2nd, 5 and May to 2025. You won't be able to make a motion on your screen, but if somebody wants to make a motion verbally here, got a motion by
Take care of it.
Mr. Hanson,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Moore. Any additions or corrections? Mr. Kudo.
Just, I mean, if, So those minutes from April 22nd meeting. List as others present. Dave Christensen, also in public comment, we list an A. Christensen. I believe it was Junior here that spoke. Wondering if we do need to include that so there's no confusion as who is actually here.
Take that edit and with that edit.
Christensen Junior. Is that a Justin?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Right, do you second on the, there's, on the, but that, second on you second on that, yeah, second from Alec on the amendment to, add Junior Baker.
Have
The
it.
two spots.
Sign in, please.
Yeah, this, something isn't right screen. It's great.
Hit this here. And hit this.
There you go.
It's gonna get long.
All right, all in favor of approving the amended minutes, vote now. Eighteen yes, passes by majority. Next on the agenda, we got the election to Highway Committee number 5 Central. So I will head up for nominations. Kudo,
I move to elect Ron Freeman.
okay. Goggins. Are you seconding? Okay, I don't think we need a second on a nomination. So if anybody else would like, has any other nominations?
Make sure that Mr. Freeman's willing.
Oh, Mr. Freeman, are you willing to accept that nomination?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations? Other nominations to the Highway Committee? Other nominations? Right? Hearing none.
Oh, still have,
I
I don't think we need to
mean, we can cast unanimous
Do we-
ballot.
cast,
Cast a unanimous ballot.
so I can,
So we got
That
a,
we close nominations and cast in a unanimous ballot for
Okay.
Mr. Freeman.
so we got a motion by Mr. Coggins to close nominations and cast unanimous ballot for Mr. Freeman. And Mr. Kudo second that. Any discussion? Not, and I'll vote. Eighteen yes, passed by majority. Congratulations, Mr. Freeman. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation by Trevor Richards, the Bruce Area Library Director.
Thank you. Good evening. Sure, so my name is Trevor Richards. I'm the new director of the Bruce Area Library. I've been there since March 17th, going on 2 months. I just wanted to come and introduce myself. Thanks to the court for all the work they do for us. We're funded by 3 municipalities. So we get our budget to all 3 and then we send it to the county and then they send it back to them, telling them how much you get, how much they should send us. So that's very critical for what we do. We appreciate that. We're gearing up for summer reading like most of the libraries in the country. The other big thing that's been going on at the federal level, there's an Institute of Museum and Library Services that was created by Congress back in the late 90s. Per an executive order at the end of March, all of the staff have been placed on leave.
This is relevant to local libraries because that agency gives 200 million to libraries across the United States. Wisconsin gets about 3 million of that each year. And that pays for interlibrary loan. So anybody in Wisconsin can get a book free of charge from any other part of the state or surrounding states or across the country. It pays for the Wisconsin Talking Book Program and Braille resources. Badger Link, which is our database of encyclopedias, home repair databases, car repair databases, medical databases, and so on. That's all available free of charge right now to anybody in the state. That money also goes to buying public computers for smaller rural libraries, providing hotspot and free internet service that we can provide to people in the communities, especially in rural areas. It's very hard to get high-speed internet. So all of that money is sort of up in the air at this point. None of that has been put into next year's federal budget. So we may need more support from our local government down the road next year, depending on what happens with any of that. And that's really all I wanted to do was come and introduce myself and say thank you for the work you do for us and give you an update on that federal agency. Thank you.
You. All right, next on the agenda, we got status update on the wage grid in Russ County. Presentation by SCOTUS.
So Ashley and I gave this presentation at Personnel a couple weeks ago, and they had asked that we forward on this presentation and give it at the full board. So that's why we are here today. So addressing wage stagnation in Russ County. Slide. So our current wage scale at Russ County has remained unchanged since implementation of our wage scale. So the wage scale was implemented in early 2023 with data that was gathered in 2022. The data used to create our wage structure was actually data from 2021 and then projected data for 2022. So since then, market wages have continued to rise, making our pay less competitive. And Russ County's scale has remained stagnant. So today we're going to highlight how our current structure compares to today's market, the risks of inaction, and what options we have going forward. So we recently took 62 of our positions within the county and evaluated them against our surrounding counties of Barron, Chippewa, Price, Sawyer, Taylor, and Washburn. So we looked at the wage scales of these positions, not what the actual person in that position is making. So actually looking at the whole scale as a whole. And we looked at 3 different points on the scale. We looked at the minimum wage, the control point wage, and the maximum wage. So this first slide here is going to go over the minimum wage. So we looked at the minimum because this is our typical wage that we would start employees at in Russ County, is at that step 1. So these wages are essentially going to be impacting our recruitment. When looking at the average minimum step versus what Russ County's minimum step is, there are 27 positions that we have that are over 10% behind. The highest position is almost 21% behind. And 20 of our positions fall between 5 and 10% behind, 10 positions between 0 and 5% behind, and 5 of our positions are above the average starting minimum wage in comparison with those 7 counties. And then you can see that graph there. So the green line on that graph is Russ County's minimum, and the orange line is the average minimum with all 7 counties, and Russ County is in that. So you can see it kind of splitting as you go up, the difference increases there. So next up is the control point. So the control point really represents the market rate for that job. So the goal, this would be the goal rate for someone that is fully competent in their role. That would be that control market rate. So paying employees below that control point wage suggests that we're underpaying compared to the market rate, especially for those that are experienced or long tenured here at Russ County. So this rate would be crucial for our retention, especially if employees remain stuck below that and they could then feel undervalued and underpaid. Again, looking at the average control point with those 7 counties, so our scale is step 11 is our control point. Rusk County has 34 positions that fall over 10% behind of the average, the highest being 22% behind. 16 positions between 5 and 10% behind, 9 positions between 0 and 5% behind, and then 3 positions above the average starting control point wage. And then you can see the same thing, that wage or the graph there that shows Rusk County in the green and then all the other counties or the other counties, including Rusk in the orange there. And the third point that we really looked at is the average maximum step. So our scale, that is step 21. So that would be the maximum pay that staff would be working towards essentially. So this would be the rate that really rewards that longevity and a high level of expertise and proficiency in the role. It would keep long-term high-performing employees in their role and would really discourage employees from having turnover, especially late in their careers, if you do get them to that higher step there. So when looking at the average maximum step, we had 44 positions over 10% behind from the average. The highest position being almost 27 or over 27% behind. 10 positions are between 5 and 10%. 7 positions between 0 and 5% behind, and we had 1 position that was above the average starting maximum wage. So again, there's the graph as well. And as you can see in this slide and the 2 previous slides, a majority of our positions are, underneath that average as it relates to the average. However, as the position grade increases, you can see the further that we fall behind. So the gap is a lot further for our higher graded positions there. You can see on all 3 of the maps, but all of them are falling below the average or majority of them. So Rusk County's understanding our current structure. So how did we get to where we're at? So Rusk County's wage scale was set based on the 25th to 50th percentile blended market rate of that expected 2022 market. There are 21 steps on our wage scale here with Rusk County, and step 11 is our control point. So this would represent that blended rate of that 25th to 50th percentile market median rate of that 50%. The true 25th percentile rate would be step 7 on our scale, meaning that about 75% of employers in the market would pay more than that in 2022. And then the true market median on our scale would be about steps 15 to 16. This is far from where we are at for most employees. In fact, only 12 employees or 9% of our employees right now are currently at this median rate from 3 years ago. So where we stood at implementation, even in 2022, we were positioned below the full market median because of how we implemented this scale, making it difficult to attract and to retain talent even then. When a new hire does start with us at Rusk County, typically they are starting at step 1, which would be approximately 17% below the market median in 2022. This graph right here is going to show our current number of employees and what step they are placed on as of April 2025. So as of April 2025, we had 133 employees on our wage scale. The green bars way on the right, so from steps 11 to somebody being red circled, those would signify that they are being paid at our control point of step 11 or higher. So the number of employees there is 31 employees. So 23% of our employees are being paid that blended market rate or higher based on the market 3 years ago. And then on the left, I want to point out the yellow. So in the yellow, you can see that that would total out up to be 58 of our employees, or 51%, are at that step 5 or lower. So reminder again, that step 5 is not even the 25th percentile market rate from 3 years ago. Next, I want to talk just a little bit about the type of increases that we would have. So there are 2 components of a wage scale system. There is what's called COLA, which is your cost of living adjustment, versus a step increase. COLA adjustments are going to increase the entire wage grid that we have to keep up with the inflation and the market changes. So it's going to adjust every range of pay that we have for each position that we have. It would keep that pay scale aligned with external job markets and the rising costs of living. It would ensure that the county remains competitive in attracting and keeping our talent. And then it would also avoid market-driven compression and pay equity issues that could occur when we bring someone in at the same or higher salaries of what our current employees would be making, or especially our long-term employees would be making. Step increases. So these are going to be internal adjustments that move an employee on their assigned pay grade. So they would move up a step. This would recognize internal growth and career progression, so helping employees to progress throughout that range over time. Step increases reward that loyalty and really encourage retention and showing that it pays to have continued service to an employer. The two, so COLA and step increases, these are really not interchangeable. They are both necessary and they both serve very different purposes. So one without the other is going to lead to imbalance and dissatisfaction. So say we were only to give COLA increases, this would mean that our longtime employees would not see recognition for staying with Rusk County, for having that experience and keeping their employment with us. If we only gave step increases, we would fall further behind even on the market and risk even more turnover with that. So really both should be reviewed and applied annually to ensure a fair and equitable compensation structure. So next up is the impact of market changes since 2022. So what has the market done since 2022? A majority of other employers have increased their wage scales to stay competitive. Our wage scale has been frozen since 2022, meaning it does not reflect any market changes over the past 3 years. Our control point of that step 11 is now likely way below that 25th percentile. Great. So some comparative data. So Cottingham and Butler, and that is Carlson Detman. So Carlson Detman is who we partnered with for our wage. They recently rebranded, changed their name to Cottingham and Butler. So annually, they send out a compensation study. And in looking at this study, you're able to look at private sector, public sectors, and then also it breaks out the regions, the state of Wisconsin regions. So I looked at the public sector, the northern and western regions of Wisconsin, and there's a few important things that I want to note. So payroll budgets increased 11.56% in the last 3 years with that northern, western Wisconsin public sector. A little bit for Rusk County here. So when we implemented the wage study again in 2023, employees did see an average of a 9% increase. However, this just brought most employees up to step 1 on the wage scale. Even with that 9% average increase, employees saw only 5% of our employees were actually placed at that blended market rate of step 11 or higher. 20% of our employees were placed at step 7 through 10, and 75% of our employees were placed between steps 1 and 6. Since implementing the wage scale, our employees have seen an average increase of 3 steps, or about 3.75% increase. So a 1.25% or a 1 step was given on January 1st of 2024. And then in July of 2024, about a 2-step average was given. The board at that point chose more of a one-time longevity-based increase, ranging from employees saw either a 1 up to a 5-step increase, depending on how long they had been with Rusk County. And this did help our compression at the bottom of our scale, and it did help our pay equity to kind of spread that out a little bit, since a majority of our employees, when they implemented the wage scale, started at that, the very bottom of the scale. Now looking at structure increases or COLA increases in our region in the public sector. So although raises are starting to finally level out a little bit, substantial increases occurred over the past few years. So higher increases actually were and still are being seen in the public sector organization as it relates to the private sector. In the last 3 years, wage structure increases in the public sector for northern and western Wisconsin was 10.8%, while ours increased 0. So why does all this matter? So we implemented a new wage structure and then did not maintain it for various reasons. That is like buying a brand new car and thinking you never need to change the oil or rotate the tire because, hey, I bought a brand new car. The vehicle, like the wage structure implementation was expensive to implement, but maintenance is still required on that. Ignoring the structure adjustments would be like skipping the oil changes. If you skip it, your performance is going to suffer and you eventually are going to face a lot more costly repairs. Implementing COLA structure adjustments keeps the system whole and healthy and responsive to the conditions that are ever changing. Step increases are like putting gas in the tank. They keep it moving. The wage study did give us a solid foundation, but staying competitive is not just a one-time event. It is an ongoing process that we continually have to evaluate. So without doing those annual structure adjustments, that investment that we put in quickly loses its value, and we're going to be back in the same position or even worse than we were before. So we really need to look at fixing the systemic problem, which is the fact that our wage grid has fallen behind due to us not maintaining it. So fixing positions one at a time would be like replacing just one tire on a car with 4 bald ones. It does not solve that actual underlying problem. And that would relate to us trying to do piecemeal fixes to one position here and there are only going to increase inconsistency, frustrations, and legal risks that we have. So what are our risks of falling behind? There are 4 main risks. So one being hiring. Candidates are choosing competitors that have better pay. 2, retention. Existing employees may leave for higher wages elsewhere. Number 3, market competitiveness. Our positioning has deteriorated significantly in the market on where we stand with the labor market. And number 4, morale and productivity. So wage dissatisfaction can reduce that engagement and performance. Now we recognize that compensation alone is not going to solve all of our recruitment and retention challenges. There's also workplace culture, management, job flexibility, career development. Those are all also important pieces to the puzzle. However, compensation is consistently one of the top reasons that employees leave, both locally and nationally. When pay is not competitive, it becomes a barrier to attracting and retaining our talent, no matter how strong those other aspects that I just mentioned might be. So without having that market-aligned pay, other retention efforts lose their effectiveness. So investing in fair market-aligned compensation is a foundational step that we need to have to support all those other efforts that we're going to have in the county. Wages will not solve everything, but without addressing them, we risk solving nothing. So in conclusion, we started behind the market median in 2022. Now we are significantly less competitive. Without regular updates, we are going to be losing talent, falling further behind, and risking long-term damage. We must start treating compensation as an ongoing process and not a one-time event. So what are some things that we can do about this? We can conduct a market wage study to update our benchmarks. We can look at adjusting our control point to align more with the 50th percentile of the current market rate. We can implement annual structure reviews to stay current. And we could introduce retention-focused strategies, including possible step adjustments to wage. In doing all of that, what you could look at doing is partnering again with Cottingham and Butler, which is formerly Carlson Detman, for the compensation market update. The objective would be to assist the county in remeasuring our target market and assessing the competitiveness of our current pay structure that we have. So they would ensure our compensation system and practices continue to support the goals that the county has to recruit and retain talent. The deliverables that they would have for the project would be to measure labor markets using benchmark jobs and similar data sources that they already have from when they first did the study. review the market positioning and provide different alternatives for addressing competitive challenges, including but not limited to an option for a revised pay plan structure based upon that market assessment, and then provide costing alternatives for implementation of an updated structure. This project would take an estimated time of 60 to 90 days, and the cost is just shy of $23,000 with any additional work outside of that scope being billed separately.
Okay, so today I wanted to speak directly to the question of how we can responsibly fund staff raises given our current fiscal constraints. So one of our primary limitations in county government is the state levy limit law, Wisconsin Stat 66.0602. This restricts counties from increasing the property tax levy beyond the growth in net new construction, which has averaged 0.8% in Rusk County over the last 5 years. The average increase in allowable levy in Rusk County over that same time period was $316,588. And in fact, in 2022, Rusk County was one of 8 counties statewide that saw a decrease in levy. So this gives you a sense of how constrained our revenue growth has been and will continue to be. Operating costs, inflation, and CPI continue to rise at a much higher rate than our levy. 44% of the county's budgeted expenditures are wages and benefits. So decisions that are made pertaining to wages and benefits have a large impact on the county's overall fiscal condition. Last fall, the Personnel Committee took an approach when it recommended layoffs as a way to balance the budget. The full board did opt to explore position reductions through attrition instead. And that decision reflects a desire to preserve jobs and retain institutional knowledge, even as we continue to address our structural financial challenges. The decision to look at position vacancies versus layoffs led to the creation of the request to fill forms that the Personnel Committee considers each month for any position becoming open. As of the end of April, no decisions have yet been made to hold any position vacant. The committee does have an opportunity to pause and do something intentional, which would be strategic workforce planning. Strategic planning allows for the board and the Personnel Committee to ask tough but necessary questions like which roles are mission critical, which processes could be streamlined or restructured, are departments operating as efficiently as they could be? This kind of planning isn't just about getting lean, it's about being smarter with the tax dollars that we have. So I wanted to be clear about where we stand today. Every position brought forward thus far has been authorized to fill, and our operating expenditures have remained unchanged. To make the 2025 budget work, we relied heavily on our general fund reserves. Specifically, $1.24 million was pulled to cover the gap. This isn't a sustainable way to balance our budget. Fund balance is meant for emergencies or one-time needs, not recurring operating costs like wages and benefits. If we continue as we are, keeping all positions staffed, maintaining current spending levels, and relying on reserves, we're likely to face the exact same structural deficit when we start budget planning again in just a few short months. We can't afford to abstain from employee wage increases 2 years in a row. Exit surveys are showing low wages as one of the top reasons for turnover. Strategic workforce planning is a necessity. We must evaluate how we staff, where we can reorganize, and how we can create a path for sustainable wage increases by aligning positions with long-term service needs. Doing nothing will put us back in the same place we were 8 months ago. So that being said, when we gave this presentation to the Personnel Committee, we wanted any feedback, insights, suggestions, or direction on how to tackle the problem before us. And that's why we're here tonight. The Personnel Committee did recommend that the entire board hear this presentation. And if you guys had any suggestions, thoughts, or questions, that we have this in an open full board forum.
Mrs. Boss.
Yes, I don't know which one to answer this, but has this county, well, first of all, do we at this point do performance reviews on wages performance? Or is it just a step thing that everybody gets once a year, or how often we get them?
I can't speak to before I started. I honestly don't know how raises were given at that point, if performance was considered, but since I began and we implemented Carlson Detman, it's just been step increases.
because this may help some retention of our best employees. Granted, it may not bring in new employees, but this possibly could help us.
Mr. Gorsinger?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Wasn't there talk at one time of like an employee survey? See what employees thought could possibly make them happier or make, or, you know, maybe they want to have better insurance and not maybe get praise, or, you know, you don't know unless you ask, I guess. I mean, you're talking about exit interviews, and that's one of the things that's in the exit interviews. But before they exit, you could, I mean, have asked them what they want. I mean, that's just a thought. I know we talked about it, but then it just never happened.
In the exit survey, we do ask about our benefits too, with the wages boxes that they can check multiple. I'm not sure where we landed on the survey, but I do remember talking about that. I know the last time they did it was right before me, I think.
2023.
Okay, that you did a wage benefit survey. But that would be an idea too.
Just a thought.
Mr. Freeman?
Just trying to understand your presentation. You had 6 counties that were listed there. You had 4 that are approximately the same size as Rusk County. And then you had Barron County, which is 3 times the population of Rusk County, and Chippewa that's over 4 times. So did you do the same analysis with just the 4 counties that are similar size? Or because it would seem to me, just judging by comparing us to Barron County or Chippewa County, that because of their population and because of the base of business, industry, and so on, that they would be more competitive simply because they have more resources.
Yep, this has been a conversation that we have a lot regarding these other counties because their tax bases are a lot higher than we could ever look at affording. The problem is that we do have to be mindful of comparable counties of where our employees are going to. We lose a lot of employees to Barron and Chippewa. And the problem also is that at one point when we may have only been 5% say behind of Barron County, I'm just making up numbers, but now we're declining a lot faster. So we used to keep a steady gap of maybe 10% behind or something. And now we're seeing that gap really widen between these other counties. We realize that we're never going to hit wages like Chippewa and Barron. We don't have the money for that. But we did include them in that study because it's a fact that that's where a lot of our employees are leaving to go to, is to some of those counties, especially with things like remote work where they're not having to like actually physically move and do those sorts of things. So it's still important to look at those wages.
I'm just trying to understand, some of the ones where there's a bigger gap. Is that because of the Barron and Chippewa counties?
In some cases, it might be. I'd have to go back and look at every position to see what the difference is, but it is an average between all the 7 counties.
Possible to put like a graph of exit interviews? I mean, obviously you could put everything in the interview, but like sum it up to wages, benefits, management, whatever the case could be. And, that might be a helpful visual of, okay, half of the, we had 200 people leave and 150 of them because of wages or something. It might be a visual for another meeting, another day. I thought, like if you go back a year, a certain time frame, I guess. Mr. Vincent.
Beyond the about approximately $25,000 that it would cost to re-benchmark wages. By the way, it was a great presentation. I liked hearing that, especially as the new members could getting up to speed. Would there be any costs or involved with beginnings the strategic planning process, or what would we have to do to start planning for wages in our kind of deficit spending environment?
I would say there would be no cost other than maybe meeting per diems if you wanted to include that in the cost. I think that's something that I would recommend the personnel committee start having those kind of discussions about like, okay, let's really dig into this. Let's maybe look at the org charts in each of our departments. Let's talk about the job descriptions of those people. Do we have redundancies? Do we have opportunities here? So they can get more familiar with how our departments operate. And then when those request to fill forms come across their desk, they're going to have more of that institutional knowledge to maybe help them make their decision. So I would say no upfront funding other than time
Committee time.
committee, time commitment.
Any other questions? For Kudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm gonna ask a hard question. Of you too. I'm just wondering if we had gone ahead with our layoff that was proposed, where would we be sitting? Granted, I understand and I do believe that your case here is very valid, and I do believe that the wage scale does need to be restructured to meet the current date. We're behind times with that. But I'm just wondering if we had been allowed to pursue the layoff, how would that have put us? We possibly had been able to actually, give people raises this year. And if so, have helped our situation?
So the 6 positions that were up for consideration totaled approximately $500,000. It was just a hair below. It was 400 some, I think, $1,000. So that is why when those positions were brought forward, we also brought forward an increase. And I think the finance committee had proposed, what was it, 3% for our lower graded positions and like 1% for our salary or something like that. But yes, that $500,000 reduction to the budget then would have accommodated for the pay increases, which were not $500,000 worth of pay increases. So then you still would have had that gap there that you didn't have to pull from reserves.
So in other, we could have actually then accommodated 3%. Sure, is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that the 6 positions would have saved about $500,000.
Would have
Right.
funded.
But could that have funded the 3% then for this year as a wage increase?
Yes. Still though, full disclosure, you still would have been pulling some out of the reserves to balance the budget though. So if that's a policy decision the board makes. So if the board didn't want to pull anything from reserves, then I guess the answer to your question would be no. If that makes sense. I know it's kind of a tricky.
I would have funded a good portion of it.
Yes.
Okay. So then, another thing that I have noticed since being on the personnel department is that whenever we get a request to replace an individual who has either left or retired, left for a different job, higher paying, whatever, the department heads are reluctant, it seems to me, to try to, roll out these duties of these people to other people. In other words, to try to save a position. In other words, basically spread out those responsibilities, like some here, some there to these individuals. In other words, try to avoid hiring an additional person. And I'm just wondering if, I think it was brought up that you thought possibly stricter stricter policy on when requests are made like that. I'm just wondering if that be a way, like, I think you had some stronger language when they came through.
For the request to fill.
Yeah. It seems to me that, I know I've talked to one other, which basically stated that when they have someone leave, they actually, they don't fill the position. They spread those out between the rest of the people in the department. I think we're gonna have to start looking at something like that. It might not fit all cases, but I mean, I have yet to see anybody try to accomplish that. They're always coming in and requesting for a replacement as opposed to get by with.
I think we only have one department that did not come forward to bring a request to fill. It'd be our IT.
Well, yeah, that would be Brett, as the facilities manager didn't. I think ultimately that's a tough thing for a department head to do. And some of what I've heard is that, once you give something up in the budget, you're likely not going to get it back. So I think that puts the department head in a tough, position maybe. And then to go back and tell your current staff, like, hey, I'm okay putting more work on you. I think that also puts them maybe in a little bit of a tough position.
Granted, I get that, but also, it could also mean then that the people that are left there might be able to realize.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed. Mhm.
Willingham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I don't see a lot of value in re-litigating the layoff reinstatement. So it seems to me that if we're going to use principles of attrition or not filling positions as they become vacant, that this cannot be accomplished in a vacuum. And it can't be accomplished by 5 people on the personnel committee looking at the best case scenarios from department heads without any input from administration in trying to decide how to go forward. So it seems to me we have to enlist the board, personnel committee, maybe the finance committee, but we also need to enlist our department heads and say, you need to help us solve this problem. And if every time a department has a vacancy, department head's going to add as many points to that score sheet that we use, and they're going to be here to beat the drum and tell us how important that person is, which I'm not saying that they're misleading us or that their information is false, but it leaves the personnel committee in a very difficult decision-making process because, you know, each department head's going to stand up for their department. And so we don't want to start the all rolling without more concrete information. And that information has to come from more sources than just the department heads and the personnel committee. We need to get good advice from our administrative staff. We need to get good advice from our finance staff. And we need to get better cooperation, so to speak, from our oversight committees. Because I guarantee you that if that department head is in here beating the drum for that position in their department, that the next time they get their drum out, they're going to be beating the drum at the next committee meeting to make sure that the 5 or so members on that committee are going to come with them next time when they come in to make a presentation. So this has to be a unified effort and a belief that not all positions can be left vacant, but not all positions can continually being refilled. And I don't think the personnel committee can tackle that problem on its own. And if we don't get that unified approach and a commitment from department heads, oversight committees, administrative staff, and the committee, it's going to continue the way it is. I do believe that the personnel committee, for the board's information, if you haven't read the minutes, or did add some steps to the process. We encourage the department heads to come in and make the best case they can with not only with the job descriptions, but with data and you know, comparable figures to say, okay, this person's caseload is this number. If we take that position out, we're going to overload other staff, et cetera. But the personnel committee is going to add some steps to that process which will give a better opportunity for department heads, oversight committees, and the administrative staff to guide us to make better decisions. Thank you.
I just want to say that with our current structure on the board, it's a little bit hard, in my opinion, to make those big decisions, because you got 5 people on a personnel committee that are trying to make all those decisions. Well, you can't bring every position to the whole board. And if you're a department head and you don't stick up for your department, it makes you, the people under you are going to say you don't stick up for it. And I do think that some of what we're working on the roles and responsibility committee might help that siloing a little bit, because you have the person in charge with kind of a more of a bird's eye view. Justin. Mr. Schneider.
I'm gonna keep mine short. One part, I agree, economics is a major part of this. There is also another one which hasn't been brought up yet tonight, and that's workplace environment. Certain parts of this courthouse, our county system, that has to be addressed too, because I've had numerous people talk to me about it. Yes, it's a combination of both of them, and some it's pure economics, but happy employees work a heck of a lot better than unhappy ones. So that's something that's got to be done. And then hopefully this role and role positions, or whatever the title of it is, will plow some of those problems as to dealing with it. You know, but that can't be avoided. Still got to be part of this discussion.
Coggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of what Mr. Willingham pointed out is spot on. I would like to remind the board that the 6 positions that were targeted for layoffs last fall all came with input from department heads. And some of those positions have come up to be filled this year. And we failed to use that attrition trigger, which I think is shameful. So.
Any other questions? Discussion? Any other questions? Right. You. Next on the agenda, we got the update for finance director. Would you mind sharing your thoughts to finance?
Yeah, so just a little recap of where we are at. I gave a update to the finance committee on Thursday, and they thought it'd be prudent for us to come to the board to share with the whole committee on where we're at with that. So the finance position at Rusk County has been posted for 4 months today. Now, we first posted it on January 20th. The position vacated on January 14th. Despite ongoing efforts, we have yet to receive any qualified applicants for this position. And by that, I mean those that would meet the qualifications that we have set out in our job description. We have not received any applicants that would meet that criteria. At the April Finance Committee meeting, a motion was made authorizing HR to engage a recruiter to assist us in filling the position. The committee did specify that there should be no upfront costs for this, and that total recruitment expenses should not exceed 25% of the first year salary of that position. And that final approval of the contract was to come from the finance committee chair. So I would bring that to Mr. Coggins and could go that route. Following this direction that I was given in April, I did reach out to HR directors in other counties and also conducted additional research to kind of figure out what firms people were using, especially in the public sector, and what other counties had used to do this. Most of the reputable executive search firms that offer that dedicated, like targeted searches for those higher level positions do come with upfront costs. This is due to the fact that they start incurring those costs right away due to they're starting to advertise, they're starting to source and do all of that work up front. So they're starting to charge the company right away as well. Fees from these executive search firms are typically structured in stages. So usually they do a percentage upfront, another portion at like the midpoint of the search, and then the remainder might be done upon placement. And in addition to those fees, they also have reimbursable fees too, that it would be the county's responsibilities for those expenses. One firm I also spoke with did note that if we're struggling to attract applicants through our own efforts, it's probably going to be difficult for them as well to generate a strong candidate pool, which could extend the time that it takes for them to fill the position for us. And then overall, a lot of those fees for these firms would exceed that 25% threshold with our salary for that finance director. The past week, since Thursday, even I've been trying to dig into this a little bit more. So this would be a new update too that I didn't give to finance. So I have identified a few, say a couple, two right now, contingency-based firms that don't charge upfront fees. However, these firms are much larger firms. One of them, I think, had 2,900 job postings that they have. So they're much larger firms and they're really unlikely to provide some of that focused recruitment efforts and working on that advertisement and stuff that these other firms that are charging upfront costs would have. And also, a lot of these firms don't specialize in any sort of like or any of those types of things. So it would be an option for us to try though and work with contingency-based firms. We just might see different results. Since the job has been posted, we have had 911 hits or views on the job posting. These jobs are posted on our Rusk County career page and on government jobs. I also repost it once a month. You don't want to leave a job stagnant for too long. Otherwise, like, hey, this was posted 90 days ago and are they really still hiring for that? So I do repost that once a month. And then the job link and posting also gets distributed to other job postings. It gets what's called like scraped to other sites, like to Indeed, ZipRecruiter, some of those other more common search functions. We also posted the job on the Wisconsin Government Finance Officers Association website. So that's one of the main associations that all the finance directors in the state are signed up for. So that was on there. So that's kind of a little bit of the update. The next steps that we're really looking at, or that I'm looking at, would be to do some sort of additional advertisement for the position. So there would be an opportunity to advertise a little bit through NeoGov, which is where we post the position. Those are quite expensive when you look at, I think we talked about we only have $1,400 in our budget for advertising for the rest of the year. And to do that for 10 to 14 days, it would be around $400 to $500. A good portion of our advertisement budget for the year on that, but that is something we could do. And then also looking into those contingency based firms in order to meet the parameters that the finance committee had set. That about cover it? Sir, I guess you're the chair, Mr. Coggin, from finance.
Oh, I guess if anybody's got advice on kind of how to steer the finance committee, because there's different ways we could go here and not having any luck doing what we're doing right now, so.
There's a button to push, so you can't.
You looking to speak, Mr. Gorsinger?
Well, you said, the advertising budget, but the wage isn't being spent right now for a finance director, correct?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
For Baker Tilly.
yes.
That and more, yeah.
I just think that, we should try to, use one of them recruiters that, that's, you have to pay them. You don't get nothing for free. Because if you gotta keep paying Baker Tilly, I guess, or whatever, then you're out more than what it's gonna cost to pay a recruiter, don't you think? Or
We likely will, anyway. This isn't just a function of us being a small county. In La Crosse County, I spent 2 years replacing theirs.
Yeah, and like Chippewa County is hiring a finance director. They can't find one right now. I think they're actually working with a recruiting firm, one that you pay upfront and quite a bit. I think they just reached out to a recruiting firm for that because they weren't having luck filling their finance director position either. I think there was a couple other open within the county. I know Ashley, on a lot of her calls, you're hearing a lot of executive level positions are very hard to fill in county government now.
anything from finance director to administrators to your highway commissioners. Just a lot of counties across the state, regardless of tax base, regardless of population, are struggling to recruit for those higher level positions.
And while our wage is low, we kind of talked about that a little bit on Thursday. Our wage for the finance director is low. I really don't think fixing that wages would also bring in a bunch of applicants either. If I could say that's what, but I really don't.
What is the cost to get a recruiter?
It would probably range, the one quote I got was close to 40,000 plus some of your reimbursables.
Guaranteed to been a recruiter.
No, you guys didn't hear Kudo, but Kudo asked, Mr. Kudo asked if it guarantees, and it's not guaranteed either. It's not guaranteed either, so you would lose. They give you a steep discount if you need to work with them a second time.
So if you take it up front.
Yeah, so if they take up front, you are out of. And so the main difference too between an agency like that where you're paying, they are actually starting, so like they come in and they make a whole like 10-page brochure on like why you want to come to the finance director at Rusk County. If you do these other contingency-based firms that don't charge anything up front, they're just literally taking our posting that they have and putting it on their site with their like 3,000 jobs. And if they happen to find somebody that applies through like their firm, and then they would reach out to us and say, hey, we got this person to apply. Now, if you hire them, you pay us money. So it is a recruitment firm, but it's nowhere near like those companies that are charging those fees up front.
For Freeman?
Yeah, just because I'm new, if you could just help me understand this. What are the qualifications for the job? What are you, I guess, just on a simple basis?
Yep, I don't want to misspeak here. So qualifications are bachelor's degree in accounting or knowledge normally acquired in a 4-year post-high school training, including successful completion of college level courses in advanced accounting, auditing procedures and practices, cost accounting, GAAP as applied to municipalities, internal control procedures, and fund accounting. And then a lot of it is like practical knowledge of above procedures normally acquired with 5 to 7 years of pre-hire experience.
5 to 7 pre-hire experience.
So coming in with 5 to 7.
In government or in private sector or?
It just says practical knowledge of the above procedures normally acquired in 5 to 7 years pre-hire experience with the above. So the above is talking about having as applied to like municipalities. So I would say that's a little bit of a gray area. You probably wouldn't necessarily need to have those in government, as that's not spelled out very clearly. But I mean, that bachelor's degree, and then a lot of these other ones are a little bit more.
Okay, so how close have you come in the candidates that have submitted say, a resume or something like that?
Multiple high school diplomas and no education.
No bachelor's degree in accounting.
Yeah.
So then-
I think we had one with a bachelor's, but it wasn't in any sort of accounting field.
Only like 1 year of experience.
And they had 1 year of experience, but not not in finance though, but maybe kind of close to arguing.
One last question. What are you paying providing this service?
It's been like anywhere from 10 to like 13,000 a month since they started.
And if I may ask, what's the age that scale that you're looking at?
Sure, let me just pull it up.
I'm guessing that the 10 to 13 is way more than what you're posting the job.
Yeah, and $10,000 to $13,000 is like the equivalent of like 1 week work
Okay.
for like 38.75 hours.
Are you getting the $10,000 to $13,000 worth of help for what they do.
My
That seems
opinion
awfully
is that
high.
I think you would need to talk to our assistant finance director. I think their help is invaluable to our finance department at this point.
10 to 13,000 valuable. I don't think. Just my opinion, having been an accountant for 44 years.
Mr. Kudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess at the high end, 13,000, and we're basically paying like for 1 week of their services per month.
So what was the last invoice? It was, if they bill monthly, and I think it totaled out to about 40 hours for the month. And it was $11,300 or something like that. I don't have access to Casella on this computer, otherwise I'd pull it up for you. But yeah, that's what it's equating.
So at the high end at 13,000, basically, say 13,000 a month, that's 156 a year.
Yeah.
6K.
I think the original contract you guys approved was like 400,000 in 4 months. Again, that's a resolution somewhere.
Okay, so my question is, what are we offering for the position?
Okay, so if you see the gray, oh, it doesn't look that good. Okay, so 41.20 an hour is the step 1, and then the step 5 is 43.56.
They authorized that to go to a 10, so it's posted through a 10.
Be 46.50.
Wasn't the
So
contract
at
100?
I'm sorry, I still have the floor. So at 46.50, you said? That's 10?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay, 46.50, so what does that equate to annually then?
About a year, 93, so 93. Sure.
roughly times it by 2.
So that seems, I mean, for finance, and that seems low to me. I don't know. Maybe what we need to do is, as a board, consider raising what we're gonna offer for this position before we actually try to invest in a $40,000 non-guaranteed company to try and find somebody for us. If we make the position more attractive, we might get somebody on our own as opposed to, I mean, financially more attractive. We might have better results at getting the position filled. If that makes sense.
So you got
Chair.
a suggestion on that?
Do I have a suggestion?
Yeah, based on, William, Mr. Kudo just asked, sorry.
The wage is lower if you're looking at that, but I don't know that is going to significantly help us. And then what I'm a little concerned about is the presentation that we just gave about one-offing, some of these positions and doing those piecemeal fixes again, as we're in the same situation with a couple other of our director level positions too.
I guess I would have to also wonder then if we were updated on our scale, what would that position be, that step worth, on a 25, 19 or 2025 scale?
That'd be increased by quite a bit.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking if we're offering a job in 2025, shouldn't we be competitive with the scale? That's my point, I guess.
Yeah, and that's where we'd want to move the whole scale. So every position, yeah.
Obviously, yeah, we want to try to do that. But I mean, this is a very important position, obviously. That we have a competent, educated, and a person with experience can handle this. The only way we're gonna get that is if we offer them that wage. Yeah. So, and same thing with the highway commissioner, I think that needs to be relooked at.
Mr. Willingham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things. One, I agree with the director in regard to, we just had a presentation about not doing that. And we're talking about doing that. So that's a problem. What's interesting to me is that I just did a little bit of memory research. And since we created that position, probably maybe back in the 80s, we have promoted people from within each time the incumbent retired. So we've had the luxury of training and, you know, sort of taking somebody who already lives here, who already wants to live here, less likely to ask for way more, but also not come or decide to leave after they get here. So I think we should be, you know, plugging this in a little bit to a couple of other situations. I think at least one other department that has had the same track record. Our Health and Human Services directors have been hired from within. We've been very successful, I believe, in hiring good people that way in some of those departments. I think there was probably a time when our highway commissioner were hired from promoting from within, although we abandoned that principle a few years ago. But anyway, so it is rather unique. I don't know, has anyone talked to the, you know, there is that executive recruitment group that retired Johnson Counties Association people. Do they do a recruitment for anything but administrators? You know,
I don't know.
I know that Chippewa County is using them. Sawyer County used them for when they hired their previous administrator, and I believe they're using them now as they're filling that position. I believe I saw somewhere that Eau Claire is going to be using them for that, for their new county administrator position.
Yeah, and the cost is pretty hefty for that.
Hey, what?
The cost is pretty hefty for that. I talked to Eau Claire County.
The one thing that I think we really need to be looking at is whether this person has experience in county government. County, I mean, I'm sure any of our previous finance directors would tell you that county financing is not the same. And often not the same as what you might get if you have a degree in accounting and we're looking for a job in the private sector. It is significantly different. And that's probably why we've been lucky to hire from within, because we have people that are already familiar with county, from accounting. So those are just some of the things we need to be looking at.
Any more questions or suggestions? Right. On it. Next on the agenda, we got the resolution changes to the Rusk County Personnel Handbook. I checked this too. Ashley or Mike. Oh, yeah. Motion by Mr. Russell. Second. Albert.
Okay, so first off, I guess I'm looking for a little feedback on how to do this. So recently we started doing the statement of explanations and putting those in your packet. Normally, what I have on the statement of explanation would be what I would and present to you guys. And I'm not sure that you want me to sit there and reread that whole page to you guys or not. So I don't know if you want to kick it off with questions right away, or if somebody's wanting me to reread that, or here you can give direct. I'm just not sure, since we started putting these in the packet so everybody could get them ahead of time.
Give it.
Okay, so currently we do not have a compensation, so I won't read that whole thing, but currently we don't have a compensation policy in place. It has come to the board a couple times, lumped together with multiple different resolutions. So this is more broken up, where this resolution is just specifically talking about and having a compensation plan in our chapter 2 of our handbook. The reason, or the way that this came about, is we've had several cases recently where we've not consistently applied how we've done certain things like promotions or there's nothing in place saying that what step a new employee should start at. There's nothing saying when it's appropriate to start someone at a higher step or what happens during a promotion process or a demotion process or a reclassification process. So without having these policies in place, decisions are made inconsistently. So by developing a policy, the guesswork, it will remove that guesswork and protect the employee and the county from arbitrary decisions or perceived favoritism. So the language would outline how new hires should be placed on the wage scale, which we currently don't have any language on that. It would outline how we apply step and structure adjustments if approved by the board, what guidelines we would follow for promotions, demotions, and transfers, how we would manage temporary appointments, and how we would handle reclassifications or changes. That's kind of what the policy, the changes are really hitting at. This policy did come from, I got it from another county, tweaked it a little bit, but it did ultimately come from Carlson Detman too. They had helped the county kind of write the comp structure when they put in their wage structure, helped them write a compensation policy to make sure they were following clear direction.
Ashley. So in the edit of the policy, it mentions that new hires may be hired up to the control point. So the control point, is that step 11, like in the previous presentations? That would be.
That is our.
Currently, policy is up to step 5.
That's really not our current policy per se, because we don't have it written down anywhere.
That's
So again, yeah, and I would say for anybody to be hired up to the control point, in my professional opinion, is going to be really hard to obtain, especially right now where we're at. The reason why I put control point in there instead of having a step, because if we do change our structure, we're not coming back to change policies either when we have it written as like what a control point is. But that is something that you guys could change if you didn't feel comfortable with that point.
So should the control point be defined in here somehow so that I mean, because I was confused when I read through this.
Yep. No.
Meeting, and it was like, well, what is a control point?
Yeah. And I totally understand that. The reason why, again, it's hard is most wage scales don't have as many steps as ours does either. So say we were to change our wage scale and go to one that has like 15 steps, the control point could then be step 7. So I was just hesitant to list like the control point being in 11.
So is it typically just the midpoint of the scale?
Yeah, and we have it highlighted on our wage scale, which is available to everyone on the Z Drive. It is highlighted in that other color to show what the control point is. That's how most counties signify what their control point is, looking at their scales. But you can see all the conditions below that. They would have to meet all of those conditions, which to me are very important. So that new hire is going to have a lot of experience. Essentially, they could come right in and not need any training. I would view that as maybe they were in the exact same position in another county where they're not, learning much new. The market conditions would have to demand that higher starting wage, not just because they really loved the candidate, but because the market conditions need that. And then the most important one is, where is everybody else at? Where are the current departmental employees placed on the wage scale? So we're not, jumping over these people that have that longevity.
Gorsinger?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. On that same section, that section 4, parent A, does the department head who the employee is going to eventually work for have say in, that's determined by the HR director and the administrative coordinator, but does the department head have any say in that? Do you take?
Yeah, I can write this in there if that would help. I would say the department head would be the one like initiating that conversation. Otherwise, as HR, I would be the one that would put somebody at step 1. The department head would be the one initiating like, hey, I would like to start this person at a step 5. And then with the approval, it would have to make sure that there's approval, but we could put that in that policy. So it's clear that the department head, can initiate that.
I mean, yeah, if it should be in writing, I think that the department head should have some say into it. But
Yeah.
if it's not in writing, then it's not there, I guess, so. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thanks.
Meyer?
Sure. So section 4 on this E, we have a typo where it says she. Promoted 200 demotions. I'm assuming it should be he, she, or she, he. And then back to Mr. Coggan, Mr. Gersinger's point. Yeah, after reading it farther, I don't like how this is kind of left out there to be interpreted later as to what the control point would be. I mean, you're saying it could be established at 7. It's generally set at 11. I think this A needs to be redone and put a little more, after what we just went through at one of our last meetings here over a couple of things that happened in hiring committees. I think this needs to be a little more stringent. That's how it's worded. Maybe they should still be, maybe we should put it in writing at step 1 through 5 and could be hired up to a established control point approved by the personnel committee after that. The thought. Yeah, I don't, after reading this again here, this section here. After what we all kind of went through and spent an hour or better and having a fiasco, I mean, could this be amended here or Rich, or could this actual handbook section, or does that be amended in the resolution?
No, you can amend the policy that's there.
Policy? Okay, I'm gonna give someone else a chance to talk before I do that at this point.
Kudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just got a question on item C, emotions. So basically it's stating that from one pay grade to a different position, a higher pay grade, they'll be approved by the department head, human resources manager, and administrative. My question is this, so what if it's you, Ashley, or the admin coordinator that's applying for a promotion? Then who decides?
I would argue that those are appointed positions, so that has to ultimately end up at the board.
And that is in our ordinance.
Okay,
Okay.
so, yeah, okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Meyer, can you point out where that he, she, I'm sorry, I can't point.
4E.
Or E?
Yep, under demotions. Third line down, 6 words to the right, maybe 8 words to the right.
Oh, that wasn't something I changed, which is why I didn't even.
No, I'm just.
Yes.
I'm-
No, yeah, I was looking
Might have
at
been-
all the red stuff. Okay.
Yeah, it's
thank
probably
you.
old, it's in black
Thank
here.
you.
More discussion? Mr. Vincent.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I was reviewing same paragraph here, and at least to my understanding, the definition of control point is pretty well understood in the HR world. And so I feel like trying to complicate that sentence with references to certain steps, or to try to really redefine what control point is, may lead to some problems. And so I would advocate against any change of that language today.
Didn't quite hear to that, the last part.
I would advocate to not change the language because it's within the HR world, the control point's well understood. And it wouldn't just complicate this.
Mr. Willingham.
I guess I'm a little puzzled that, and I'm not arguing the definition of control point. But if we're raising the bar here for how much leeway is given to administration to step all the way up to step 11. I think we're risking bringing people into department is filling a position in a department and having that person now be above employees that are already in that department.
That's where the policy does lay out that you wouldn't be able to do that because of number 3 under.
I mean, I guess I would be willing to set at a step rather than at a control point. And I would say, right now, I think we have sort of a handshake agreement to, without the handshake, that it's 1 to 5. I would be willing to support going to maybe 1 to 7. Going all the way up to 11 makes me uncomfortable. Because I think we're going to violate again the very thing we've been talking about, getting equity. I guess I shouldn't use that word. Getting some sort of planned progression here with our steps. And if we start bringing in new people at significantly higher steps than people that are already in the system, we're gonna end up doing the same thing that you're talking about earlier about filling positions and kind of one-off increases. So I would be much more comfortable if we set that point at 7, step 7. Guess I could make a motion to that effect.
If you're looking to amend, you can make a motion to amend.
Yeah.
Already did.
Under 4A. In the second line after. May be hired up to step 7. That of the control.
So. Not to come back and revise this every time. If we put control point, which is now currently wage 7 or step 7.
11.
Well, he wants to make it 7.
Not the control point, though.
Oh, the control point's already defined.
Yeah,
Okay.
the control point is defined as the step 11.
Yeah, it's not something we just say. Certain step is the control point. It's more of a statistical.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
So that's my amendment.
So again, one more time, where's that at?
Under check. Under section 4, pay rates and the new language for.
Can you hit your amend button on your tablet?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you hit your amend button on your tablet?
Oh, yes, of course.
Mr. Chairman?
It's working.
Mr. Mike.
Anyway, it would just change the language. A new hire may be hired,
That he was
Up to-
amending right away.
strike a control point and enter step 7.
So
Can I ask one clarifying question with that amendment or no? Does that include adding that department head language to that sentence or just the step 7? Adding the department head, like Mr. Gorsinger had said, or are we just talking about the step 7?
I think they should be.
My amendment, I would leave him
Or the same sentence?
to
Okay.
offer his own if he wishes.
Okay.
So then to clarify, under chapter 2, section 4, sub A, second sentence, a new hire may be hired up to the control point. The control point will be stricken and replaced with step 7.
That's it.
And you have a second.
All right, is there a second
Yeah, you
to the amendment?
I had a question.
She's
I
asking
wasn't
a
seconding.
Oh.
I wanted to ask a question.
Or you asked, is there a second to the amendment by Mr. Willingham? Second by Mr. Hanson.
Mr. Russell already went.
No, Mr. Russell, sorry. Your second, all right. Now.
Okay. So you said though that if we change the steps, if we change our scale, then like if we put in here that it's step 7 and change our scale and our number of steps, like right now we have 21 steps. So what you're really trying to get at is 2/3 of the control point, step 7, right? So if we change our scale to be 10-step scale, then by saying step 7 in the personnel thing, then we're not doing what you intend to do, right? I think what you really want is 2/3 of the control point to give the authority for them to negotiate up to 2/3 of whatever the control point is. Is that not your intent? That makes sense?
If he hits it.
Can I answer that?
Speak. Yeah, go ahead. If you want to hit your speak button, no.
I guess that wasn't my intention. If we changed our scale, if we add more steps, that might mean we need to take another look at it. But if we just are adding a certain increment to each step, then I don't think that would be make any difference. I'm just looking to limit the gap between the lowest point that they have the authority to set without committee or board approval, lowering that gap.
And I guess to answer your question, if you change the scale, that should be another, we'd have to come back and change that the way it's which. And yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'm a little confused yet. So we're gonna change, the amendment is to qualifications shall be hired up to step 7. That's the amendment.
Correct.
So the line behind that, a new hire may be hired up to it more or less, it should say up to step 7, which is gonna be the control point.
No.
So
That's the only thing that was stricken. Control point right there was removed and replaced with step 7.
okay, on the second sentence.
Correct.
New hire may be hired up to step 7 with approval of the human resources manager. Okay. Where does the hiring committee come in at then, now that they have been doing this up to this point? The hiring committee during that process has been establishing a wage, correct? Are we kind of muddying the water here right now?
Well, the only time a hiring committee has established the wage is when a department head asks for it to go above a step 5, but that's not.
Then that committee votes on that, correct?
Yes. But we don't always vote on the wage.
What?
You don't always vote on the wage
And how did we get in the last situation we were in?
because they wanted to go above a step 5. So in this policy, it says that it's now saying that a new hire should not be brought in above the control point, and that will have to actually, that I'm reading that needs to be changed to step 7 too. A new hire on the very next, if you guys flip your pages, on the top, a new hire should not be brought in above step 7 unless there are extenuating circumstances. Any new hire requested to be brought in above step 7 will require the approval of the personnel committee. You have to change control point in all those areas to step 7.
So then we can just change the amendment to replace the word.
So I would say the ad hoc
7.
review committee would not be able to do that anymore.
With that, Mr. Willingham?
Right, Ashley?
Can you say that again?
I would say the ad hoc review committee would not be able to do that, that it has to come from personnel.
Yes, if we're changing it to say that anything above a step 7 goes to personnel, the ad hoc committee would not set a wage above step 7 anymore. It would be driven by the personnel committee.
I just wanted to,
I think.
thank you.
Does that make?
Mr. Russell, you're good with seconding with
Yeah.
a little bit of modification there. Okay. Any more discussion? Any more discussion on the amendment? Not, you can go ahead and vote. This is for the amendment only.
And that's changing the words control point to step 7 in the policy.
3 places.
Correct.
Yes, 6 no, passed by majority. Now we're back on the main motion. Be to adopt the policy changes. Is there any more discussion?
Wait a minute.
Bend button won't work.
It's working.
Okay.
So we're gonna accept
Except anybody's, okay. Leave up in there.
I guess I'd like to amend that the department heads included in that conversation of where they start out at, hire start out at. And may be hired up to step 7, point with approval of the human resources manager and administrative coordinator in consultation with the department head or something to that effect.
Adding and department head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a motion by Mr. Corsinger and a second by Mr. Coggins to add department heads after human resources manager and administrative coordinator in section 4A here.
If it means anything, that was the intent, so I definitely agree with adding that. Just
Any more discussion? Any discussion on the amendment? If not, you can go ahead and vote on this amendment. Seventeen yes, 1 abstained. But it passed by majority vote.
Okay.
Right? That brings us back to our main motion again. Another amend there. Any discussion on the main motion here? Which would be to adopt this with amendments? Any more discussion? More discussion, no more amendments? Okay. Go ahead and vote now for the changes as amended. 17 yes. No, passed by majority. Okay, so next on the agenda is adopting the new collective bargaining agreement with the Russ County Jailer Dispatch and WFPA, the union.
This is for our jailer dispatchers.
Can I get a motion in a second before you start? If I get a motion by Mr. Russell and a second by Mr. Moore. All right.
Okay, so this is for our jailer dispatchers. This new agreement would take effect upon its passage and publication and would expire on December 31st of 2026. So the agreement that we currently had in place expired December 31st of last year of 2024. Bargaining did begin back in August of 2024, and we just finished that up recently for the jailer dispatchers. So the new agreed upon terms are listed there in your resolution. These are terms that were agreed upon by the jailer dispatchers and then the personnel committee who serves as that bargaining committee for the county. The passage of this resolution would mean that you're approving and ratifying that 2-year collective bargaining agreement, and that you are giving the powers for the personnel committee chair to sign the said agreement on the county's behalf.
Under item 9 pertaining to rolling over vacation time, it states that if it's not used within the first 3 months, that it can be converted and rolled into the employee's health savings account. Is that at 100% then? Is that 48 hours of wages? Or is that reduced or?
I'm trying to think, is it $50 a day still?
It's the county policy, so it's the 48 hours for the bargaining unit. They're
So that would be at their pay rate then?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I just wanted some clarification on that.
But it would matter where they're at because we do give a pretty healthy HSA, so the IRS.
There's a max. I get that.
That one of their side letters.
That was a side letter. I mean, that was a side letter that got rolled into the actual contract language. And I think that might have passed before you guys all came on.
That was before me as well.
Okay.
Right. Well, that's something that is already in there.
The side letter, yes.
For discussion? More discussion? Not go ahead and vote. 18 yes. Passed by majority. All right, next on the agenda, we have setting compensation for Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy.
See?
Yeah, sure, you gotta start.
You can.
We got a motion. Motion by Mr. Gorsinger, second by Mr. Russell. All right, vote now.
Just to give a little bit of background, I don't know if everyone's aware, but, after I was appointed by the governor, I need to fill my old position in our department, the chief deputy spot. Although I was not in agreement, it was probably the right thing to do. The board decided to remove the chief deputy from the union wage increases and placed him on the wage scale. Board decided to do that, which, like I said, is probably the right thing to do. Probably should have been done several years ago. I asked for I want to say it was step 11, if I'm wrong, Ashley. I asked for step 11 for the chief deputy. That was told no. I asked for a step 7. Told no. Asking for a step 5. So I'm a chief deputy, sorry, department have a chief deputy, I had to stop doing all the work. In the past, we have placed positions like that at step 5 in the county. Personnel did pass step 5 for the chief deputy, so I'm asking the full board to allow the chief deputy to make a step 5 wage, so he can start doing his job. He has started, yeah.
Any questions?
I just want to note one thing that it is retroactive back to May 1st, which is when sheriff started assigning some of those duties over, just to know.
Any more discussion? More discussion? Go ahead, Mrs. Foss.
I'd just like to make a comment that I think this is very low. Action for me, it's well worth more than this. Just a comment.
Anybody else? Any more discussion? More discussion? If not, then vote. Yes, passed by majority. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Okay, review and replace section 2-729 of the Russ County Code of Ordinance to line up the 2023 Wisconsin Act 207. We got a motion by Mr. Meyer. We have a second by Mr. Wedwick. And Mitzi?
I can do it. This is, I guess, getting in line with, Wisconsin statutes. 3 years ago, there's a Supreme Court case that came out that stated that when a county takes, taxes, takes real property by virtue of non-payment of taxes. What Wisconsin had done previously is in the event that the property was sold in excess of the tax debt, unless a taxpayer in certain circumstances made a claim for it, the county would claim the proceeds for anything in excess. Under the United States Constitution and likely the state constitution, they deemed that that was unconstitutional. So they updated their statute to prohibit the taking of excess funds under most circumstances in excess of the taxes and expenses and fees incurred in foreclosing on those tax deed proceeds. That's what this does. And I think the tax deed procedure for this year just began 3 weeks ago, so you probably saw that in the paper. I think it took up a page and a half.
Yes, and I think that resolution, it's new, my understanding, clarifies and defines who the heirs are. So I think that wasn't as clear before.
Any discussion? Questions? Not, go ahead and vote. 18 yes, passed by majority. Okay, next is confirming or ratifying the authority of council for Russ County to add additional defendants to the opioid litigation. Rich.
Give me a motion.
Oh, yeah, let's get a motion and a second. By Mr. Meyer, by Mr. Russell.
So this is being done at the request of Opioid Litigation Council. So back 3-4 years ago, this county, along with every other county, with the exception of, I think, 3, engaged counsel to attempt to obtain settlements from opioid manufacturers. As a part of that, it was our belief that we gave them the ability to sue anybody and everybody that we thought that they should. When they sued a company, the company is attempting to state that the county did not give the attorneys the legal ability to add them as defendants. So that's specifically stating that we are giving them the ability to add these current defendants and any additional defendant that they deem necessary on our behalf. So it's adding more bullets to the gun, so to speak.
Any questions? Discussion? Not, go ahead and vote. Yeah, passed by majority. Next on the agenda, we got amending the 2024 budget. Motion. Motion by Mr. Wedwick. Mr. Meyer.
Oh, so the finance committee was brought forth the contingency and line item transfers that we do every year to close out the prior year budget. They did have lingering questions on some of those contingency transfers, so they chose to only forward the budget amendment resolution to the board for consideration. So a reminder of what this is original budgets that were exceeded in excess of 10% in actual expenditures. And you have that list there. Chair Coggins did ask for each department represented on this list to attend the finance committee meeting or present some kind of explanation, if you will. And he, I believe, would, or do you not have your laptop with you? If you do have specific questions, they were addressed at length in the finance committee meeting.
Questions? Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my problem with this is the lack of detail. Because this comes out and I tried to figure out where these numbers are coming from. I don't see detail. When I look at the 2024 budget that this is supposedly amending, I see a lot of detail. I see the lines, I see what they're there, and I don't see a comparison to the actual. I understand that I can get an explanation of each of these, but I'd like to see the detail. Because I guess the devil is in the details, so to speak. And, like for instance, a personal escort, I go to that page and I look and see that it's not 95,867. It's actually 402,120. So just from that alone, I'm not gonna vote for this resolution, simply because one, the detail that's listed here is incorrect, but I don't see the detail comparison between the budget and what actually was spent and what lines it was actually spent on.
Mr. Kudo.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So actually, Mr. Supervisor Freeman brought up the same point that I was going to bring up. There's another one too was, example, these are, if I'm looking at this right, so these are actually over budget items that ran over budget. What was the original budget for that?
Yes, so the actual expenditures exceeded the budgeted expenditures by 10% or more.
So I guess then, like, for example, 100-77, how would that, it seems to, how would that happen to go over $140,000 over?
So that's one of those weird ones. If you guys will recall, I believe it was January of 2024, the Pork in the Park fundraising team formed a 501c3 and they requested that their money be released from the county to that 501c3. So that booked as an expenditure. And it was like $153,000. So that payout shows as an expenditure.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yep. And then a couple of the other ones, for instance, animal shelter spay. Again, the budget was for $12,000. We spent more than that, but we have a gift fund or a spay and neuter fund balance that covers that. So yes, we spent more than was budgeted, but there's money to cover it, if you will. Penalties and fines. So the 20715, that is a jail assessment budget. So the circuit court collects all of those fees per state statute. We budgeted that we would have $8,000 in expenditures. The clerk of circuit court actually took in $9,191.99. So that's actually, it's showing as a bad thing, but that's actually a good thing because all of that revenue came into that budget, but it shows it as an expense because the revenue comes in and at the end of the year, we transfer that revenue equally to two different budgets. So it's showing as an expense.
And then back to Supervisor Freeman's point for line 100-37. He referenced it actually stated in, you've taken that figure from the actual
2024 budget approved.
Budget. So he said it was like 400,000?
402,120.
To 120. So where are the additional 250,000 coming on that?
Okay, so the 95,867 is one specific line in personal escort. And for, help me out here, that's RCTC.
Match, that's the county's match for the state grant.
The transit.
So the total, yes, for the personal escort, which is the program that takes people in wheelchairs, et cetera, to medical appointments, many of them out of the county. And the transit does charge for that, but it doesn't meet the total cost. So there's a grant involved in that, there's revenue involved in that, and then the county's match amount. So the total budget was over, but not, it didn't require an additional appropriation from the county.
Correct. And that huge overage that you're seeing was vehicle expenses.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yeah, just one follow-up, Mr. Chairman. That's one of the reasons why I wanted the detail. Because if there are revenue that are being used for these expenditures, it would be nice to see that. And then I could, look at that comparison and say, oh, it's the revenue that was given to the county for a specific expenditure. And that's the reason why I would like to see that detail.
Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Not, you can go ahead and vote now. 14 yes, 4 no. That's by majority. Right, we're skipping, number 7. That by.
Michael. Nothing there.
Are you looking
Can't
to
yet.
speak before we move on to the next agenda?
Yes, I would like to.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Perhaps Mr. Freeman and some other comment. Ones I know in there that I'm in that committee, I know why they happened, but the other ones I don't. Perhaps one little line underneath one of those next year for the budget would be handy. Grant money, you know, outside sources, state money would, I think, make it a whole lot easier to understand. Thank you.
That's a good idea. That's finance. We listened to all of it, but
Yeah,
we didn't bring to all that we heard at finance with it, so.
nothing complicated, just.
All right, skipping over, number 11 on to, item number 12, which is amending resolution 2623, authorizing the formation of the ad hoc construction committee to improve highway. Do I have a motion? By Mr. Russell. And a second by Mr. Schneider. I was asked to on the agenda when the ad hoc construction committee was originally formed. They were talking about building a jail only. And so they included somebody from emergency services, but afterwards, when the highway came into the discussion, somebody from the highway committee was not added to the ad hoc construction committee. And some thought it might be wise to add somebody from the highway committee to that construction committee, which would make sense. So way to do that would be to bring the resolution back to the board so we can amend that resolution, how somebody sees fit here. And Rich, you have any?
Yeah, so again, when I have two possibilities that I would suggest, one is just add one. I don't really like that idea. Now you have 6 people. Again, that's one option. You could add 7, but once you get that, you get close to having a quorum board and things like that, or negative quorum. So I guess my 2 suggestions would add one to have 6, or remove the at-large member.
Well, and
I'm sorry, remove a member.
well, the other thing is the at-large could stay. You could remove the chair and it won't necessarily stop me from being able to show up to the committee. I just want to be a voting member as well too. I mean, I'm just.
And I misspoke. I didn't mean to specifically state.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of options and I don't have a preference myself. I do think it's important somebody from highway is on that committee. What?
Well, I think he just raised my concern. If you have an even 6, that's not good because we've already had 3-2 votes. We need an odd number. So I'm saying if you're going to add somebody from the highway, then you should remove somebody else or remove their voting thing. Because like I say, we've already had 3-2 votes. You don't want an even number. The committee.
Somebody have a suggestion on what they would like to see?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, I guess I wouldn't have a problem if you would get off of the committee, but still attend if you're,
Yeah.
if you so desired at your discretion. I don't know if it's As far as appointing someone from the highway, that would, can we do that now, or do we have to wait and just wait till we have a?
Oh, it's appointed by the county board.
Oh,
Yep, per the resolution. Yep.
So on that, one of two options, my suggestion would be, is if you're making a motion to, or to amend that resolution to remove the county board chair and and add a highway department member, either to be selected by the highway committee, one option, or if you want to name somebody, I suppose you could do that too and vote on that, but I would do one or the other.
Yeah, so at this point, then I would to,
You have to hit your amendment.
to amend the motion to say that the chairman would offer the committee and we would pick someone from the highway department to be on the committee, and my suggestion would be Supervisor Meyer.
Okay. So we got a motion to amend, to remove the chair, add a person from highway and appointing, Mr. Meyer as that person. Do we get a second? Do that, amend the resolution. We got a second from Mr. Russell. Okay, Willingham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you be amenable to, rather than removing the chair from the committee, just have the chair be a non-voting chair of the committee?
I kind of thought that's what I was trying to say, that he could, his discretion.
But then he would, if he's just an ex officio member, he wouldn't necessarily be chairing the meetings. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm not the chair at that, I'm not the chair on that committee anyway.
Oh, okay.
And it personally doesn't make a difference to me. That's why I remove myself, because I can still show up, you know, there's a reason I got a chairman's salary and stuff too. I'm expected to do certain stuff, so I have no problem removing from that. To me, it seems like a logical way to do it. The 6-man committee seems a little strange, so personally don't have any problems with that at all. As a matter of fact, that's why I suggested that. More.
Seeing I'm the at-large member, I mean, if I can bow out if, requested, I guess. I enjoy being on the committee, but, I guess it's up to everybody how they want to handle it, but want to go to remain a voting member, and I can bow out if need be.
Got too many nice people in the room. We like your input. Your input's probably a little better than mine anyways. I'll still speak my mind. I just won't be able to vote on it. Mr. Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering if the highway department had an ability to review their members, and if Supervisor Meyer was amiable to taking that position the way the amendment is stated.
Yeah, would you accept, would you
Looks like
accept that?
bus.
I would rather not. As long as you're gonna put me on the spot, I would rather see Mr. Billard take that.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent, for taking me off the hook there.
So does that change?
So.
I would like to amend the, can I amend that? Can I amend the amendment just to say, suggest, have the highway committee come back with?
Would it be easier to vote no on the amendment than this?
I've already got an amendment. You can't do it.
Vote no on this amendment. Vote no.
Mr. Freeman, did you have something on the amendment for me?
Just clarification, how are the other members determined? By their committees or
By the board.
by the board? The committees give a recommendation.
No.
I think they sent Mr. Rastack emails if they were interested. I think.
I'm gonna check.
No, this is Caleb.
I believe this was after Mr. Rasak. I believe.
Yeah, because
Mr. Caleb.
the board was replaced and then.
I think that was the original committee.
Yeah, so the committee was, the board chose those. I think that Mr. Caleb had suggested some people possibly.
I think they appointed them. The chair did, right?
Caleb, because Rastack is still listed on here.
That's the one.
We didn't have Caleb till the end of 2020.
And all of all of whom were appointed by the county board chair. Or by the
No,
county
it's the
board at the
county
time.
board, but I
Yeah.
think he brought forward. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions on the amendment? If not, I mean, Mr. Meyer specifically requested not, I would, we can vote now. If you vote no, then somebody could make another. I won't tell anybody how to vote. I'm just saying that Mr. Meyer has suggested he doesn't want it. So go ahead and vote now on that amendment.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I got it.
Team no.
Oh. Thank you for the no vote.
Okay, so somebody else wanted to suggest another amendment. Something popping up there.
Yeah, Mr. Kudo, right?
Okay, Mr. Kudo.
Take turns missing a meeting?
I'm gonna make the same amendment of asking Mr. Miller to be on.
So we got,
Ask him if he wants it first.
and yeah, before we get this second, Jerry, okay, Jerry says yes. So if we get a second on Mr. Kudo's amendment, second by Alec. Any discussion on this amendment, which would be to remove the chair, add a person, a member from the highway committee, which would also in this amendment would appoint Mr. Biller.
So there's no confusion, the chair meaning you.
Yes, me as the chair, yep. Yes, there's another chair. That, the chair of the board. Okay. If not, go ahead and vote now. And yes, passed by majority.
Now you gotta vote on the original with the amendment. Yes.
Resolution.
Underline.
If you are waiting.
First motion. Because it was on.
Gotcha. Okay, Lois.
Good.
I wonder why we missed that May 15th disaster declaration for severe weather.
So the management director suggested that we don't have significant enough damage to declare an emergency now. At first, the first step was to declare it within 24 hours because you don't sign that, you can't declare it after the fact. But after doing his research and finding what we had for damage around the area, he didn't feel it was necessary to proceed with that.
Yes, and then he did indicate they're waiting on the city of Ladysmith. If they do have enough, they can either declare on their own, or we can then bring back our declaration to be ratified at a later date. So
Was asked to provide for the city.
I don't know. That was the EM director. Today. I do think he said he'd either ask Kurt or Doug is what he had said.
So
Right, and I don't know.
Okay, next on the agenda is discussing possible motion on the river outfitters offer to purchase parcel number 246-03560-0000 on the Village Avenue, Arthur Road. And there is a closed session reserved for this too. We go into closed session to negotiate, but I would ask, since we have the people put in the offer here, if you have anything to present on this. Or if there's any questions before we go into closed session. Obviously, any negotiating we want to talk about in open meeting. Already had a chance to view the offer to purchase. I would suggest somebody make a motion to, well, go into closed session. Uh, So, okay. All right, so,
I'll remake the motion, please.
before, I gotta read
Okay,
this, I think.
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so closed session announced by Chair Sal, parcel 246-03560-0000 on the corner College Avenue, corner of the road pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, para 1, para E, for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. We have a motion by Mr. Vincent, second by Mr. Moore to go into closed session. Go ahead and vote. Session. Anybody wants to debate it? All right, 18 yes. Passed by majority. You're now in closed session. We'll be going back and close.
Anybody out there, Bill?
Out there, I think.
They made some edits in closed session. Vote sheet. So I will be in contact with your attorney first thing.
Okay.
Okay?
We're done?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is closed session announced by Chair Curran with legal counsel in regards to settlement demand pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, para 1, para G, for conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body regarding oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. We got a motion by Mr. Biller, second by Mr. Weber to go into closed session. You can vote now. I'm going into closed session.
Closed session, please.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Kudo. Mr. Kudo.
Mr. Kudo, would you like to go into closed session?
Sorry.
All right, 18 yes, we are now in closed session. now an open session. All right. Open session. Now, is there anybody?
No.
He's like half asleep. Okay, so, announcements. So next month, it was brought to my attention that our pictures on the website are updated. We've had a few different board members, quite a few different board members swap since then, so want to come in at half hour early? It's early.
You usually done.
15 minutes early, 5:45 at the June 24th meeting and dress in your Sunday best.
Did you just Photoshop it?
Can we Photoshop it?
Just Photoshop it?
Superimpose you somewhere.
The 24th?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then it might be snowing next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody's going to the WCA conference, bells, a few of you responded to me, but I need to know because I have to book some room. So if you're going, please just tell me, email me, whatever, so that, and then we'll.
New members still go free of charge.
They sell their free ticket to.
Sign them all up and then somebody else wants to go there.
We bring up what happened in the storm, the two instances we had. So Brett and Phil had called me, being chair of property. The elevator got hit in the Sally Port, which we're looking at 10-5 to fix that. Got hit by lightning, burnt the boards out. And the rail yard in Tony got hit by lightning, took out all our computer boards out of the scale.
Oh, God.
So we're gonna have some pretty good bills coming up the property.
Have insurance covered?
Our deductible is $1,000 and lightning strikes are iffy on if they're gonna be covered or not. Yep.
You have to have an electrician sign off on if
Yes.
it's lightning damage and whatever. Which $10,000 deductible.
Just so everybody's aware, it's probably come out of contingency. I had to approve them to get fixed because there were two items we need to have fixed.
Yeah.
We'll keep everybody informed.
Spending money on.
Yeah. Lots of money.
All right, any more announcements?
Bill. Announcement for
Gary,
tomorrow night.
I was just gonna say that.
All night.
I think
I'm having a baby.
tomorrow is our law enforcement memorial, law enforcement memorial at Memorial Park at 7:00. I don't know if the board of supervisors got the email, but I know our department sent out an email. Did you guys get it?
Brandon said it.
Okay, we're gonna send it out.
All right.
Yeah.
Would encourage your attendance. Bill Unterschutz will be giving a speech. You guys can all hear him read the proclamation.
Sounds what's attending right there.
Right, Mr. Willingham, you had an
I
announcement.
believe Ashley asked during a couple of our discussions about the explanation sheet for the resolutions and we ignored her. And so I would like to just let her know that I appreciated those. Very helpful to prepare and a lot easier than trying to make sense of the resolutions. Keep doing it. At least for me. If nobody else wants them, fine.
Okay.
Particularly useful for stuff
Let
like
me, Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
that was a little more complex, so it was easier.
All right, any more announcements?
They're in the packet.
Yeah, they're in the packet online too, I think.
Yeah.
All right, if we get no more announcements. We got a motion.
And that was quick.
Motion by Mr. Hampson, and second by Mr. Billard.
Please vote.
Everybody in favor of adjourning? Aye. Opposed? Oh, That's by majority votes. We're now adjourned.
That's not what. Just saying the.